Get ready to dive into the story of a true giant of bodybuilding. A man who turned weakness into strength, pain into discipline, and challenges into victory. His journey carried him through tough times and placed him among the greatest names of the so-called Golden Era. And it wasn't just about muscles. It was about attitude, vision, and legacy. So you know the drill. Grab your pre-workout and join us on this inspiring ride. In just a few minutes, you'll see how determination can transform not just a body, but an entire life. Ready? Then put your headphones on, crank up the volume, and let's start this story together. Clarence Ross was born on October 26, 1923, in Oakland, California. His life began with hardship. The son of Herschel Ross, a transport worker, and Jeanette Levi, he lost his mother at a very young age. Without her presence, he bounced between foster homes, growing up in a childhood marked by instability and a lack of solid roots. Those difficult years shaped his character, forcing him to find strength within himself, strength that would later make him an icon of bodybuilding. Clarence's early years were anything but easy. On top of losing his mother, he also faced physical challenges, like flat feet, which limited his ability to play sports. To make things worse, he was bullied for being skinny and looking fragile. But instead of crushing him, those obstacles planted a seed of determination. He wanted to prove to himself and to the world that he could change his reality. Even with those struggles, Clarence always showed an interest in sports. As a teenager, he tried football, basketball, and track, hoping to build both body and mind. He wasn't a standout athlete in any of those, but those first steps into physical activity sparked something in him, a love for pushing limits and testing his willpower. That athletic foundation would become crucial when he eventually discovered weight training. At 17, standing 5 feet 10 inches, 1.78 meters, and weighing just 135 pounds, 61 kilograms, Clarence made a decision that would change his life forever. He started lifting weights. At first, it was just a skinny teenager trying to gain strength and confidence. But little by little, training became a passion. He realized it wasn't just about building a new body, it was about reshaping his destiny. And right in the middle of those discoveries, history stepped in. The Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941 stirred up a wave of patriotism across the U.S., and Clarence was no exception. Inspired to serve, he enlisted in the U.S. Army Air Forces on October 31, 1942, and was assigned to Las Vegas. That move marked the beginning of a new chapter, where discipline and responsibility became even more central in his life. In the Air Force, his dedication to physical training quickly stood out. Clarence wasn't just another recruit. His drive and energy got him promoted to weight training instructor. Picture that. The same kid who was once seen as weak and fragile was now teaching soldiers how to get stronger. It was in that environment that his identity as an athlete started to take real shape and gain respect. On the personal side, Clarence also found stability early on. He married his high school sweetheart, Jean Ross, who would stand by his side throughout his entire journey. She supported him through tough moments and celebrated every victory. With her by his side, Clarence found emotional balance and extra motivation to push forward. That support system would prove essential for the intensity he poured into the sport that was about to transform his life. Joining the Air Force didn't just bring Clarence discipline. It also connected him with people who would change his path. One of them was Leo Stern, a seasoned bodybuilder who became his mentor. Stern introduced him to tougher, smarter training methods, emphasizing not just repetitions but raw strength and even Olympic lifts. That new approach opened Clarence's eyes to a whole new world of possibilities. With Stern's guidance, Clarence began training in a much more focused and challenging way. He had already built some muscle, but now his progress exploded. His body responded fast and dramatically. The once skinny teenager who weighed 135 pounds grew into a man packing dense, defined muscle, eventually hitting around 205 pounds, 93 kilograms, at his peak. Wherever he went, people noticed the transformation. But it wasn't just the scale that showed the difference. Clarence stood out because of the balance in his physique. While many athletes chased pure size, he brought something rare for that era: proportion, symmetry, and a refined aesthetic. For him, it wasn't enough to just be big. You had to be balanced. That vision became a signature of his career and helped cement his place among the legends of the sport. Over time, this unique mix of power and beauty earned Clarence a fitting nickname, the King of the Bodybuilders. Unlike others who collected titles but faded from memory, Ross left an impression through his stage presence, charisma, and ability to inspire. It wasn't just a nickname. It was a badge of respect that captured the essence of who he was. Back in those days, bodybuilding was still in its infancy. There wasn't nearly as much information, supplementation, or technology as we see today. What Clarence had was discipline, dedication, and the drive to push past his limits. By adopting Leo Stern's training methods, he proved that hard work and consistency could deliver extraordinary results, even without fancy resources. Beyond his impressive physique, Clarence also pushed an idea that few understood at the time. Bodybuilding could be a form of art. His body looked like a living sculpture, a mix of balance and proportion that echoed the aesthetic ideals of classical statues. That mindset helped change how the public viewed bodybuilding, raising the sport to a whole new level. This first step into bodybuilding marked the birth of a legend. From a skinny, insecure kid, Clarence Ross became an admired and respected athlete, not only for what he achieved in the gym, but also for the message he carried. Any obstacle can be overcome with discipline and passion. And the best was yet to come, because soon he would step on stage to show the world the results of his work. In 1945, just a few years after starting serious training, he pulled off an incredible feat. He won the AAU Mr. America title, also taking home the Most Muscular award. That victory instantly put him on the map, making him one of the brightest rising stars in the new generation of bodybuilders. The following year, Ross proved he wasn't just a one-hit wonder. In 1946, he captured the Pro Mr. America title, cementing his place among the champions of that era. His impact went beyond trophies. His appearances in bodybuilding magazines spread the sport to a growing audience that began to see it as more than just a parade of muscles. But the showdown that truly defined his career came in 1948. That year, Clarence won the Mr. USA, beating none other than Steve Reeves, the ultimate symbol of bodybuilding aesthetics at the time. That victory not only elevated Ross to another level, it also placed him among the very few men who ever managed to beat Reeves on stage. In 1949, Ross returned to competition stronger than ever. He won the IFBB North American Championships, but finished runner-up at the Mr. USA, this time losing to John Grymek. Still, he once again placed ahead of Steve Reeves. That detail alone reinforces his historical importance. Clarence Ross was one of the very few bodybuilders to defeat Reeves twice, a claim almost no one else could make. Even at the height of success, Ross kept chasing new challenges. In 1955, he traveled to London to compete at the prestigious NABBA Pro Mr. Universe. There, he won the tall class, but missed the overall title, which went to Canadian Leo Robert. Still, his international appearance boosted his image as an elite athlete respected worldwide. His final big stage came in 1956 at the Pro Mr. USA, where he placed second behind the future legend Bill Pearl. That competition marked his farewell to the sport, and what a send-off it was. Even without the win, Ross showed he still belonged at the top, holding his own against the new generation with the same elegance and dedication he always carried. Offstage, Clarence also left his mark. In 1949, he starred in the Warner Brothers short film So You Want to Be a Muscle Man, bringing bodybuilding to the big screen and to a much wider audience. Decades later, in 2002, he received one of the sport's highest honors, induction into the IFBB Hall of Fame, immortalizing his contribution to bodybuilding. His career wasn't just about stacking trophies. It was about building a legacy that continues to inspire generations. Clarence Ross believed that the secret to a standout physique wasn't in overcomplicating things, but in keeping it simple. For him, the key was combining straightforward, consistent, and intense training. That mentality captured the essence of the golden era. No gimmicks, no overhyped routines, just total dedication to the basics, executed with discipline. At the start of his journey, Ross followed the standard 1930s model of doing just one set per exercise. It worked to a point, but he quickly realized its limits. After winning Mr. America in 1945, he completely changed his approach. adopting the multiple set system. That shift proved far more effective for building size, strength, and definition, and Ross became a strong advocate for it as the best way to train. His post-1945 training routine included timeless classics that remain the foundation of bodybuilding today. Squats, bench presses, rows, lateral raises, biceps curls, triceps extensions, ab work, and even some explosive movements inspired by Olympic lifting. The focus was always on big compound lifts, exercises that built not just isolated muscles, but full body strength and power. Another key part of Clarence's philosophy was consistency. He usually trained 3 times a week on alternating days, making sure every session was as intense as possible while still allowing proper recovery in between. For him, progress boiled down to progressive overload, lifting a little more each workout, whether in weight, reps, or sheer effort. It was his way of putting into practice the belief that strength builds size. But Clarence also added his own twists. He was a big fan of cheat reps, especially on bent-over rows. By using a little body momentum to move heavier loads, he believed you could shock the muscles in a unique way, break through plateaus, and spark even more growth. While controversial to some, that method became one of his trademarks. Beyond the training itself, Clarence valued documenting the journey. He encouraged his students and fans to keep written logs of their sets, reps, and weights, and to take photos regularly. For him, pictures were the best way to track progress, comparing results over time, spotting weak points, and seeing where there was still room to grow. His diet followed the same simple but effective philosophy. Ross focused on lean proteins, clean carbs, fruits, veggies, and dairy, with a special emphasis on milk, which he recommended several times a day for anyone struggling to put on weight. Processed foods, sugar, and alcohol were off the table. More than chasing aesthetics, his nutrition reflected his view that health and strength came before trophies. For Clarence, building solid power and conditioning was the foundation that naturally led to a great physique. Clarence Ross wasn't just an elite competitor. He helped shape how the world saw bodybuilding. At a time when most athletes chased pure mass, Ross was one of the pioneers who emphasized aesthetics and symmetry. His body wasn't just big, it was harmonious, balanced, and visually striking. That attention to proportion opened the door for bodybuilding to be recognized not just as a sport, but as a true art form. More than chasing titles, Ross had a broader vision for weight training. He believed lifting shouldn't only be about shining on stage, but also about building health, strength, and longevity. That mindset was revolutionary, helping break the stereotype that bodybuilding was just about vanity. His image graced countless magazine covers throughout the 1940s, 1950s, and 1960s. Publications like Your Physique, Iron Man, and Muscle Power showcased Ross as the model of what bodybuilding could achieve. That kind of exposure helped popularize the sport, attracting young people who saw him as an example worth following. Each cover was like an open invitation for others to discover the transformative power of lifting. Ross also branched out beyond the stage. He worked as a model, writer, and businessman, sharing his expertise through training articles and running his own gyms. He wasn't the type to hoard knowledge. Instead, he spread it, helping the culture of bodybuilding grow and shaping new generations of lifters. Even more than that, Ross inspired with his outlook on life. For him, bodybuilding wasn't a sacrifice, it was a joyful way to live. He often said that weight training was the most fascinating way to live with health and happiness. That simple, positive message resonated deeply with his followers, who saw lifting not just as a way to transform their bodies, but also their minds and spirit. Joe Weider, known as the father of modern bodybuilding, even highlighted Ross's importance publicly. He described Clarence as intelligent, genuine, and always willing to help others. That kind of praise shows Ross was respected not just as an athlete, but as a person. His generosity and character added even more prestige to bodybuilding during a crucial stage of its growth. In the end, Clarence Ross's contributions went far beyond trophies. He helped build a new mindset, proving that bodybuilding could be a lifestyle, an art form, and a path to health. His legacy is still alive today in every athlete who chases not only muscle, but also balance, discipline, and inspiration. Behind the image of the great bodybuilder, there was also a family man, Clarence married his childhood sweetheart, Jean Ross, and together they built a life of mutual support and partnership. While there aren't clear records of children, it's obvious that their marriage was a cornerstone in his journey, giving him stability amidst the demanding life of training and competitions. After finishing his service in the Air Force in 1945, Ross wasted no time. Riding the wave of his growing fame, he opened his first gym in Alameda, California. The place quickly became a gathering spot for bodybuilding enthusiasts, where he could pass down techniques and inspire new athletes. More than just a business, it was the reflection of his mission to spread the culture of weight training. Decades later, in 1976, Clarence jumped back into the fitness scene by opening another gym, this time in Walnut Creek. He ran it until 1981, when he decided to sell. Even after the sale, the gym stayed active for years, proof of the lasting impact of his work. It was as if his presence had given the place a long life of its own, continuing to benefit athletes long after he stepped away. Even without competing, Clarence stayed deeply connected to the fitness world. He worked as a trainer, speaker, and entrepreneur, always sharing his vision of health and strength. For him, bodybuilding didn't end on stage. It was a lifestyle meant to be passed on, whether through direct teaching or by inspiring people in events and articles. Outside the fitness spotlight, Ross had plenty of personal interests that showed his versatility. He loved music and played piano, dove into all kinds of books, and had a strong interest in philosophy. These hobbies revealed his introspective side, showing that his strength wasn't limited to muscles. It also lived in his intellect and sensitivity. Another defining trait was his commitment to community. Clarence believed in setting an example for younger generations. He dedicated time to social work, visiting schools and youth centers. His goal was to show that the discipline and health built through sports could truly change lives, especially for kids searching for direction. His post-competition life painted the picture of a mature Clarence Ross, still passionate about everything bodybuilding stood for. He balanced life as a retired athlete, entrepreneur, mentor, and regular man who loved music and philosophy. That combination made him more than just a stage legend. It made him a role model for living with purpose and leaving a legacy beyond trophies. Clarence Ross is still remembered today as one of the greats of bodybuilding's golden era. At a time when the sport was just finding its footing, he helped set standards of excellence that remain alive decades later. His name is mentioned alongside giants like John Grimek and Steve Reeves, securing his place among the immortals of the sport. His body was nothing short of a masterpiece. Clarence became a benchmark for proportion, symmetry, and elegance, qualities that went far beyond simply piling on muscle. On stage, his presence was magnetic, projecting not just strength, but also refined aesthetics. He showed the world that bodybuilding didn't have to be only about raw power. It could also be a celebration of physical beauty. More than titles and trophies, Ross left behind a life lesson. His journey was living proof that discipline and consistency can overcome any personal hardship. From a skinny kid, motherless and raised in foster homes, he rose to become a global icon of the sport. That transformation still inspires anyone facing obstacles and dreaming of changing their reality. His influence goes far beyond his own time. Many modern athletes still look up to him, especially those chasing the perfect balance between aesthetics and strength. Clarence believed muscles shouldn't just be big, they had to be functional and harmonious too. That vision is still relevant today and serves as a guide for anyone who wants to build a physique that's not only impressive, but also healthy and long-lasting. Throughout his life, Ross made it clear that bodybuilding could be much more than just a competitive sport. For him, it was also a form of art, a tool for health, and even a lifestyle. That perspective widened the horizons of weight training, inspiring everyday people to bring lifting into their routines. Clarence Ross passed away on April 30th, 2008, at the age of 84, but his legacy lives on. Every athlete who steps on stage valuing proportion and elegance, every young person who finds in weight training a path to self-improvement, carries a piece of his influence. He may be gone, but the mark he left will never fade. Looking back at bodybuilding history, there's no way to ignore Clarence Ross. He didn't just win titles. He elevated the sport, showing that muscles can express strength, health, art, and even a philosophy of life. And that's exactly why, even after his passing, Clarence Ross is still remembered as the true king of the bodybuilders. So, what did you think of Clarence Ross's incredible journey, the eternal king of the bodybuilders? His story proves that discipline, consistency, and passion can transform any life, no matter the obstacles. But now I want to hear from you. Which part of Ross's journey inspired you the most? Drop your thoughts down in the comments. Your voice makes all the difference in our community. If this video brought you value, go ahead and hit that like button. It really helps the channel reach more people who love bodybuilding history. And if you'd like to support our work even more, consider becoming a channel member. That way you help keep the project strong and also unlock exclusive content and special perks. And hey, if you're not subscribed yet, don't wait any longer. Smash that red button below, ring the bell, and join this community that celebrates not just muscles, but the inspiring stories behind them. And of course, it doesn't stop here. On the end screen, you'll find a special video we picked out for you to keep exploring the world of bodybuilding. I'm sure you'll enjoy it just as much as this one. So don't forget, like, subscribe, comment, and jump straight into the next video. See you there.